single bottle, 6 liters of Napa Cabernet, sells for $500,000. A mailing list closes and stays closed. People wait years, sometimes a decade, just to get in line to buy 2 bottles. One vintage is reportedly dumped down the drain, millions of dollars refused on principle, and a co-owner ends up in federal prison, while the brand barely blinks. This isn't a French chateau with centuries of ceremony. It's a quiet driveway in Oakville with no tasting room, no tours, and almost no public words. What do you call a wine you can't visit, can't find, and can't stop hearing about? Screaming Eagle, the California bottle that turned silence into a megaphone. Tonight, the whisper that became a roar, the scarcity that minted a market, the drain that proved a point, and the scandal that should have scorched the label but somehow didn't. If you think luxury is built by shouting, this story will change your mind. A record-setting auction, a decade-long wait list, a deliberate disappearance of an entire vintage, a prison sentence in the orbit, and through it all, demand goes up. This is the scandal's tale of Screaming Eagle, the most coveted, most controlled, and most controversial wine in America. Start with what you can't have. No tasting room, no tour, no casual drop-ins. If you know, you know. If you don't, there's a single number on a gatepost and a long, quiet drive back to Highway 29. The most famous driveway in Napa looks like it's hiding nothing. That's the first move, and the first mystery. Even a certain rap billionaire got the no. The press gets the same answer most visitors do. On-site media, almost never. There are no lawn tastings, no curated flight with a cheese board, no selfie angle. The brand lives behind a gate that refuses to perform. Scarcity is policy, secrecy is posture, and posture is the point. Closing the door isn't rude here, it's strategy. Silence creates a vacuum, and the market rushes in to fill it with speculation, status, and story. The less the winery says, the more collectors say for it. That paradox drives the entire engine. When access is impossible, attention compounds. And when attention compounds against a production measured in hundreds of cases, curiosity turns into fixation. Most wineries beg you to come closer. Screaming Eagle asks a more dangerous question. How badly do you want something you can't even see? The answer shows up in inboxes, auctions, and whispered allocation trades, the culture doing the marketing because the winery wouldn't. This origin story doesn't open with a chateau. It starts with a realtor and a map. Jean-Philippe spent her career learning where Napa's bones bend, where the soils flip from gravelly river wash to benchland loam, where afternoon breezes slip through the mayacamas, where a few rows can taste like a different country if you plant them 3 feet higher. In the mid-1980s, she begins quietly assembling acreage in Oakville, a parcel locals describe as young, near perfect, staggeringly beautiful. The obvious move is to sell fruit to the big names. The fateful one is to keep it. Robert Mondavi tells her flatly, this site should speak in its own voice. So she ignores the fast money and starts making wine in an old stone barn with a handful of barrels and a stubborn idea. Phillips's unfair advantage wasn't marketing, it was topography. She could read the ground like a contract. The drainage lines, the tilt toward evening shade, the seam where a deeper rock shelf forces roots to work harder and berries to get smaller and more intense. She hires brains to match the dirt, first Richard Peterson, then Heidi Peterson Barrett, and replants for intent, not yield. Before there's a label, before there's a wait list, there's an address that deserves a voice and a team organized to listen. The barn isn't romantic, it's practical. The decisions are small on paper, row spacings, clonal choices, pick windows, but they stack into a thesis. If the site is this good, speak softly, pick ruthlessly, and let the bottle make the noise the driveway never will. (1992), a first commercial vintage you could seat in a classroom, about 200 cases. Released in 1995. Robert Parker tastes it, and drops 99 points. Not after decades, overnight. A debut from an old stone barn in Oakville suddenly rewrites the pecking order. Release price was $75. Ambitious then, instantly obsolete. Phones melt, faxes jam. Retailers get calls from people who only ring for first growths.
What is happening?
The list stops being a mailer and becomes a club. Watch for the letter, send the check. Never brag in public, never flip where they can see. The market learns a new rule. Access is the asset. Most crucially, the wine matched the number. Blackcurrant and violets without noise, power without syrup, oak that frames, not shouts. If it had been merely good, the 99 would have read like a fluke and died by vintage 2. Instead, it became ritual. By year's end, collectors who hoarded Bordeaux were hoarding a Napa debut, and an unmarked gate in Oakville turned into America's most famous no. The fuse wasn't just lit, the blast wave had started. They don't flood the market. They dam it. Direct-to-consumer list, not distribution. Control who buys, how much, and at what price. When the list fills in 2,000, they shut the door and throw away the key. New spots only open when someone surrenders their allocation, which means most people wait and wait. The waiting itself becomes a status game. Access turns into an asset, and the physical policy matches the commercial model. Closed to the public. No tastings, no tours. Scarcity is real. Production, commonly in the 500 to 800 case range. That's not marketing spin. That's math. Result? You don't just buy the wine. You buy a seat in a room other people can't enter. Year 2000. Charity auction in Napa. Paddles up. Spotlights hot. The room buzzing with .com money and bragging rights. Lot appears. One bottle, but not a normal one. A 6-liter Imperial of the 1992 Screaming Eagle Cabernet. 8 standard bottles worth of the debut that already had its own folklore. The bidding doesn't climb, it sprints. Hands go higher, numbers go stranger. And then the gavel falls at $500,000. For a single bottle, a record. Charity matters. Everyone in the room knows a portion of that price is generosity. But the signal is louder than the context. Napa can command this. Screaming Eagle can command this. Overnight, the number ricochets through collector circles in New York, London, Hong Kong. Restaurants that could never dream of pouring it start using the headline as shorthand, the $500,000 bottle. Brokers recalibrate their spreadsheets. The waitlist gets longer. The story gets shorter. One winery, one record, one new ceiling. If the 99-point debut wrote the myth, this hammer price priced it. It turned a cult into a currency. It told every would-be buyer and every rival winery what scarcity plus trust can do in public. Not a case, not a vertical. One bottle at the price of a mansion. And from that night on, Screaming Eagle isn't just a wine. It's a benchmark for how loud silence can be. (2006) Phillips sells. Rumor says about $30 million. Maybe more. The buyers? Stan Kroenke and Charles Banks. Big league capital meets a tiny barn brand. The mandate? Professionalize, invest, scale quality without touching scarcity. First moves are blunt. Raise the mailing list price from approximately $300 to $750 a bottle. Replant swaths of vineyard. Build a new cellar. And then the legend inside the legend. The 2005 vintage, made under old ownership but unreleased. Reportedly dumped, millions down the drain, because it didn't meet the new bar. That's not thrifty, that's theater. Theater that says, our standard outranks our spreadsheet. They also introduce a second wine in 2006, Second Flight, later renamed simply The Flight. Merlot forward, same estate fruit, different voice. It broadens the tent without cheapening the crown. When a wine tips from coveted to cult, behavior changes. The secondary market blooms in the shadows. Brokers start offering cash just to keep your spot, paying list members a premium for their yearly allocation because the access itself has become an asset. People whisper about trades, never brag in public, because getting caught can get you cut. This isn't paranoia, it's policy. One long-time buyer writing about a Screaming Eagle purchase, flat out, refused to name the seller, because discovery could mean removal from the mailing list. In this world, silence isn't manners, it's survival. That silence is amplified by the house itself. No tasting room, no tours, no cellar door, and procedures treated with the reverence and secrecy of a centuries-old vineyard. The brand won't narrate, so collectors narrate for it. Rumors become rituals. A Merlot-based sister wine appears. Second Flight, later The Flight, deliberately positioned as a peer, not a second-rate label. An uber-rare Sauvignon Blanc allocation exists almost as a rumor. 1 barrel's worth, roughly 25 cases, / approximately 300 bottles, offered only to deep tenure members. Each side door is so narrow it makes the main door feel even more valuable. This is Veblen logic with terroir. The harder it is to get, the more it's desired. The more it's desired, the more the price signals status. Financial outlets literally pitch it as liquid investment gold, where scarcity, story, and scores combine into a bottle-shaped asset class. Meanwhile, the list stays closed for years on end, forcing would-be buyers into auctions and brokers, an ecosystem that keeps the myth humming even when the winery says nothing. But here's the governor that keeps the cult honest. Scale. When you produce a few hundred cases, you cannot hide a bad year. If quality slips, the market tastes it immediately. That's why scarcity can't be a stunt, it has to be a consequence of standards. Screaming Eagle's flagship sits around 500 to 800 cases. Some years, choices get even tighter. That constraint makes every decision visible, which is exactly why the scarcity game keeps working. Because the wine is better than the story, and the story is already outrageous. "2011 should have been a stumble. Cold all spring, a summer that never quite arrived, then rain right when you don't want it. Late and wet." Around Napa, people cursed the calendar. Screaming Eagle did the opposite. It tightened. The new winemaker, Nick Gislason, promoted into the big chair that very year, walked straight into the storm and made one of the best wines of the vintage. Critics confirmed it. 96 points from Venice in a year most wineries would rather forget. Why did it work? The site helps. Sloped, rocky soils drain when neighbors puddle. But the work matters more. Aggressive canopy management to move air through clusters. Painstaking sorting at harvest to reject anything the weather tried to sneak in. You get less fruit and less wine in barrel, but the trade is clarity. That's the Screaming Eagle Compact, sacrifice volume to protect the signal. The result is a 2011 that aged beautifully, deepening in tone, firm and fine-boned, while other labels kept explaining the weather. Then came 2017, trial by fire. Smoke rolled into Napa and camped over Oakville. Screaming Eagle had only brought in a small portion of pristine fruit when the smoke arrived. Rather than gamble the brand on taint thresholds and explanations, they did the scary thing, dropped the remaining crop on the ground, and announced no standard 750 milliliter bottles for the vintage. Quality over cash, in public. From the clean, pre-fire fruit, they made a tiny amount of wine and did something no one expected. They released magnums only, about 600 for the world. A quality decision packaged as an artifact of survival. What could have been a reputational bruise became a calling card for discipline. Hyper-rare, instantly collectible, a physical reminder that this house will throttle supply before it bends a standard. In crisis, they chose the hard road and the long memory. That's why the cult holds. The wine keeps proving it deserves the story. This should have cracked the legend. In 2006, the estate changes hands. By 2009, co-owner Charles Banks is gone. Years later, he pleads guilty to wire fraud and goes to federal prison. For most luxury houses, that stain spreads. For Screaming Eagle, the market barely blinks. 2 reasons: timing and architecture. Timing. Banks had been out for years when the plea hit. architecture. This isn't a personality cult. It's a place cult. No tasting room glad-handing, no frontman to fall from grace, no retail network to boycott. The brand voice is silence. The proof is in the glass. The relationship is the list. And the house had already taught buyers how it behaves under threat, sacrifice before compromise. A rumored vintage down the drain. 2017 released only in magnums. So when a courtroom headline flared far from the crush pad, collectors asked two questions. Is the standard intact? Is the list intact? The scores stayed lofty. The magnums read as discipline. The gate stayed closed. Result, the scandal didn't stick, because in a place cult, the reputation lives or dies with the next bottle, not the last headline. Perfect 100s across multiple eras, 97, 07, 10, 12, 15, 16, are more than bragging rights. They're evidence that the center holds through ownership changes and winemaking handoffs. Continuity of excellence is the moat. And when 2017 turns into a magnum-only capsule, it reads like a signature that says, "We'll throttle supply before we compromise the standard." From the outside, it looks like just for scarcity. 500 to 800 cases, and you're done. Inside, it's 3 levers. Control the list, control the price, control the narrative by saying almost nothing. No tasting room, no tours, no interviews. You don't visit Screaming Eagle, you receive it, if you're on the list. Extensions concentrate, not dilute. The Merlot led the flight frames the flagship. The Whisper Rare Sauvignon Blanc, about a barrel's worth, acts like law. Each side door is so narrow it makes the front door feel more precious. Enforcement keeps the halo bright. Flip loudly, and you can be cut, so the seat becomes more valuable than a one-off profit. And the loop closes with public receipts, auction records, magnum-only crisis releases, perfect score streaks, proof that justifies the price, which justifies the silence, which keeps demand compounding. Not just scarcity. A machine that turns control plus proof plus quiet into the loudest signal in American wine. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You can steal the moves and still faceplant. Screaming Eagle works because the tactics sit on top of the right dirt and the nerve to say no. PR can paint a fence. It can't move a vineyard. Discipline is the compound interest. Start with a site that argues for itself, because no press release fixes the wrong soil. Debut small and price proudly, then earn an external validator early. One great review can rocket a trajectory, but only if the wine is undeniable without the headline. Close the door. Direct list, not retail. When it's full, lock it and don't apologize. A cult without a gate is just a crowd. In a bad year, say no. Declassify, skip, or shrink. You trade short-term cash for long-term credibility, and that's the only currency a cult can't counterfeit. And finally, talk less. Let the vineyard, the scores, and the scarcity do the speaking. If you've been disciplined all along, even your mistakes read like standards. In luxury, the loudest flex is silence. Screaming Eagle never asked to be believed. It simply stayed scarce, stayed excellent, and stayed gone. A $500,000 Imperial announced the name. A rumored vintage down the drain protected the halo. A co-owner's prison headline barely rippled the pond because the protagonist was never a person. It was a parcel of Oakville earth. The brand kept saying less. The wine kept saying enough. Somewhere behind an unmarked gate, a few hundred cases are made, and the rest of the world learns the most valuable word in Napa: no. That's the real scandal here. That restraint could be this powerful. That doing less and doing it better could outshout every press release on Highway 29. The auction gavel, the magnum-only fire year, the closed list that stayed closed. Each choice taught the same lesson. Standards are louder than stories. The bottle didn't just survive hype, it outlived it. And that's why the legend holds, because the quiet keeps winning. If you want the loud playbook, there's the Charles Smith story. Black and white labels, rock and roll swagger, volume as a weapon. a masterclass in turning personality into distribution, or dive into another wine legend, there's a famous tale about a Benedictine monk who supposedly invented champagne, except he didn't.